I still remember the first night the green glow drifted through the trees, not because it was bright or loud or unusual, but because it moved with the kind of quiet purpose that did not belong to this world or any jungle in Vietnam. It slipped between the trunks like a living mist, pulsing in soft waves, each pulse feeling like a heartbeat you could feel in your teeth and bones. And even though none of us spoke about it out loud, every man in the squad felt the same thing at the same moment. The glow was not wandering, not drifting, but watching. We were deep in the Central Highlands, the kind of terrain that felt stitched together from mud, fog, and memories that did not want to stay buried. We had been humping through the area for nearly 2 weeks, and every day the valley felt heavier, the air denser, the shadows thicker than what the sun should allow. Our interpreter, Havin, walked with us, quiet and uncertain with his half-broken English, pointing out old trails and the occasional village marker. But even he kept glancing over his shoulder, as if something were following us, long before we ever saw the light. That night, he was the first to notice it, shaking me awake with a trembling hand and whispering, "Sir, something there." When I looked past him and saw that dull emerald shape sailing lazily between the roots, I felt my breath catch in my throat. It was not a flare, not a lantern, nothing burning, nothing mechanical. It floated as if carried by thought alone. The other men woke one by one, each staring at the glow with a mixture of fear and curiosity that made their shoulders stiffen and their fingers twitch near their triggers. The jungle around it fell silent, not quieter, silent. No birds, no insects, no leaves moving in the breeze. It was like sound itself held its breath. Lieutenant Kessler whispered to hold fire and stay low, but the glow reacted as if it heard him. It paused, hovered, and its pulse slowed, as if thinking. Then it drifted closer, weaving through the vines with a grace nothing natural possessed. As it neared the perimeter, I swear the temperature dropped. Not the chill of night, but a coldness that crawled under the skin, like being submerged in deep water. It was faint enough that nobody spoke of it, but strong enough that nobody forgot. Vin stared at it longer than the rest of us, his wide dark eyes reflecting the glow in a way that made him look older and younger at the same time. He whispered something in Vietnamese under his breath, something soft and reverent, as if he recognized the glow. When Lieutenant Kessler asked him what he said, Vin shook his head and murmured, "It knows we are here." Those words stuck in my mind like a splinter I could not pull out. When the glow finally retreated back into the trees, dissolving between the shadows like morning fog, no one dared speak. We laid awake in the humid dark, waiting for it to return, because the way it moved did not feel accidental. It felt like a first step, a test, and somehow every man sensed it would come back. The next day, the squad moved with an edge I recognized only from soldiers who had seen something that did not fit in their understanding of the world. Even the hardened ones, Miller, Alvarez, and Roman, walked with rifles a little tighter and breaths a little shorter. The jungle seemed different, as if the trees leaned closer, as if the ground listened. The sun barely broke through the canopy, leaving everything tinted in that odd green shade even when the glow wasn't present. Vin seemed distracted, his eyes tracking gaps in the foliage, turning his head sharply whenever a branch snapped or a shadow shifted. He was normally quiet, but that day he said even less. He kept rubbing his palms together like he was trying to wipe something off that we could not see. Whenever I tried to ask him what was wrong, he'd only answer, "It watching," in that soft voice that made my stomach tighten. We set camp again before dusk and waited, all pretending we weren't waiting. The night insects returned at first, buzzing around our ears and settling into the usual jungle symphony. But then slowly, the sounds faded. First the frogs, then the beetles, then the crickets. It was not sudden, it was a dissolving silence, as if each creature sensed the glow coming before we could. And then we saw it. Same emerald haze, same soft pulse, same deliberate floating motion that made it look alive and aware. But this time it hovered closer to the tree line, almost inviting, almost studying. I felt the same pressure build in my skull, not painful, but heavy, like someone pressing 2 fingers gently against my temples. None of the men wanted to admit it out loud, but the glow was pulling us, drawing us in, calling us. It was wrong in every way, and yet mesmerizing, peaceful, almost beautiful. I wanted to look away, but every time I thought about turning my head, the glow pulsed, and my eyes stayed fixed. Then something happened that snapped me out of it. Vin stood up. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't look at any of us. He rose with slow, deliberate motion, his breathing calm, his posture relaxed, almost serene. He stepped once toward the light, then another, His face looked softened, eyes half-lidded like he was hearing a lullaby. Miller grabbed his arm to pull him back, but Vin whispered, "It calling me," in a tone so steady, it froze the entire squad. Lieutenant Kessler ordered him to stop, but the glow flashed, a single slow pulse, and something in Vin's expression changed. His fear vanished, his uncertainty vanished. He stood straighter, taller, breathing with purpose. And without another word, he tore away from Miller's grip and ran into the trees, straight toward the waiting glow. We chased him, tripping over roots, crashing through vines, grabbing at shadows, but the glow moved deeper, faster than any of us could keep up with. When we reached the spot where he disappeared, there was nothing left but still air. No footprints, no snapped branches, no sound, just the faint memory of that emerald pulse echoing in our skulls. We searched until dawn, and when the sun finally broke through the tree line, we found nothing. No Vin, no glow. Only the cold certainty that whatever had taken him was not finished with us yet. When dawn finally broke over the canopy, its light felt wrong, weak, as if the sun itself was hesitant to push through the thick humidity that clung to the valley like a living skin. And the moment we realized the search had failed, a heavy silence settled over the squad, the kind that does not come from exhaustion alone, but from the dawning understanding that something unnatural had reached out of the jungle and taken one of our own. No one said it, but every man was thinking the same thing. Ha Vin was gone in a way no enemy, no trap, no terrain could explain. Lieutenant Kessler kept trying to rationalize it, muttering about disorientation, panic, a wrong turn, maybe even a Viet Cong guide snatching him in the dark, but no one believed that. We had all seen him walk straight toward the glow with clarity in his steps and calm on his face. We had all felt the pull. And as the sun climbed higher, casting that strange yellow-green shimmer across the wet leaves, every man knew this was no ordinary disappearance. Still, we followed procedure, sweeping a grid through the underbrush, calling his name in English and Vietnamese, firing off signal shots, marking trees with chalk. Hours passed. Sweat poured down our backs. Mosquitoes fed on our necks. The jungle pressed closer, thicker, heavier, as if it wanted us to give up and leave what it had taken. By noon, Miller cursed under his breath and kicked a rotting log so hard it exploded into dust. Alvarez told him to calm down, but his voice shook, and even Roman, the toughest bastard in the squad, kept glancing at the tree line like he expected the glow to reappear any second. We regrouped near a fallen trunk, and that was when we heard the footsteps. Soft, steady, human. Every rifle snapped upward instantly, barrels aimed at the direction of the sound. Branches shifted, a figure stepped into view. It was Ha Vin. He walked out of the foliage without a scratch on him. Uniform spotless, hair neat, skin clean, boots without mud, as if he had showered, slept, and ironed his clothes before returning. But that was not the part that made my stomach drop. The moment he met our eyes, he smiled, calm, polite, too calm, and said, "Good morning, gentlemen. I trust your search was not too exhausting." Perfect English, flawless pronunciation, no accent, no hesitation. The very sound of it felt wrong, like hearing a child speak with the voice of a grown man. Every man in the squad froze. Roman mouthed "what the hell" under his breath. Miller stepped forward slowly, eyes hard. "Vin, where have you been?" he asked. Vin tilted his head like he was listening to a distant melody. "I walked to the river, rested on a stone, and returned at sunrise," he answered. Smooth, controlled, rehearsed. No breathing strain, no trembling, no exhaustion. Lieutenant Kessel questioned him harder, demanding specifics: how far he walked, which direction, why he left camp, whether he saw any enemy movement, but Vin responded with the same polished calm, as if reading from a script. Every answer was logical on the surface, yet hollow underneath, like a doll repeating lines it didn't understand. But the strangest detail wasn't his perfect English. It was his eyes. He didn't blink, not once. Not even when the bright tropical sun flashed through the canopy and hit him square across the face. A bead of sweat rolled down from his brow to his eyelid, and he still didn't blink. It slipped into his eye, and he kept smiling. That unnatural stillness crawled under my skin like an insect trying to burrow deeper. Kessler ordered him to sit, and Vin complied with a grace that bordered on unnatural, lowering himself slowly, hands resting perfectly on his knees, back straight, feet aligned. Not a single twitch, not a single adjustment. Humans shift. Humans scratch. Humans flex their shoulders. Then did none of that. He sat like a statue studying us. We posted a rotating watch on him, 2 men at a time, 2 hours each. But every pair came back shaken in a way they couldn't quite articulate. Alvarez said Vin could hear his heartbeat. He told me it sped up when I got closer, he muttered, pale as chalk. Roman swore Vin was breathing slower than any man should, barely a rise in his chest, like his lungs had learned to mimic life rather than perform it. Then something happened that confirmed our worst fears. Near mid-afternoon, a fly landed right on Vin's eyelid, crawled across it, wandered to the edge of his eye. His gaze stayed locked forward, unbroken, unblinking, as if the fly wasn't even there. When it buzzed away, he smiled faintly and said, "Distractions are irrelevant." His tone was soft, measured, but heavy with layers I could not decode. That was the moment Kessler ordered me to inspect him more closely. I crouched in front of him, feeling a cold ripple run down my spine as I met his gaze. His pupils were dilated more than they should have been in daylight, black and deep, like wells that led somewhere too far beneath the surface. "Where did you really go?" I asked. His smile widened just a fraction, too controlled to be natural. "I learned," he said, and I returned. "Learned what?" He tilted his head again. "Language, structure, patterns." His voice grew softer. "You will learn too." Before I could react, a rustle moved through the treetops. Not the wind, not an animal. A shift, coordinated, rhythmic, like something gliding between branches above us. Every man jumped to his feet, rifles raised, eyes scanning the canopy, but there was nothing. No movement, no shadow. Only the faintest smell in the air, metallic and cold, the same smell that came with the glow. And then Vin spoke again, still sitting perfectly straight, perfectly still. "It is watching the ones who watched it." His tone was not a warning. It was a reassurance, a promise. And as the jungle fell silent once more, as that eerie metallic scent spread through the air, each of us realized the same terrible truth. Whatever had taken Vin during the night had not returned him to us. It had sent something back, wearing him like a well-fitting uniform. And we were only at the beginning of understanding what that meant. By the time the sun dipped behind the ridge and dragged the shadows long across the clearing, every man in the squad understood, whether he admitted it or not, that the thing sitting where Vin should have been was not one of us anymore. And the longer we watched him, the more that truth dug itself into the back of our minds, like a thorn we could not remove. We tried to maintain normalcy, cooking rations, checking gear, retying boots, but our eyes kept sliding back to him, and each time we looked, he was already looking at us, unblinking, expression calm, as if he had been waiting for the exact moment we turned. Even the way he breathed was wrong, slow, rhythmic, flawless, without the slightest irregularity. Real breathing has weight. Real breathing stutters when fear rises or muscles fatigue. Vin's breathing was mechanical in its perfection. It made my skin crawl. As night settled in fully, the jungle began its usual chorus, but beneath the insects' drone and the distant hooting of unseen creatures, there was an undertone. Something low, almost like the Han falling from the bridge. The conversation was indifferent, and the insects crashed on the scene, tacked up. But too organic to be mechanical, and too steady to be natural. It vibrated the ground in faint pulses, barely noticeable unless you were sitting still. And Vin felt it. I saw his head tilt slightly each time the low hum rolled through the earth, as if he were listening to a familiar voice whispering from the soil. Roman approached him, pretending to check the rope securing a pack nearby, but he kept stealing glances. When he finally muttered, "Kid, you sure you're all right?" Vin responded without turning his head, "I am optimized." The word hit the air like the snap of a twig. Optimized. Not fine, not okay. Optimized. Roman backed off, face paling. Lieutenant Kessler called a quiet meeting at the edge of the clearing, out of earshot, or what we thought was out of earshot, of Vin. The lieutenant's jaw tensed as he glanced back at the unmoving silhouette sitting beside the campfire. "We cannot pretend this is normal," he whispered. "Something happened out there, something we do not understand." Miller spat into the dirt. "You think?" he growled. He walked out of the jungle cleaner than a damn parade uniform. "He speaks better English than half the officers I know, and he does not blink. Not once. Not once." Alvarez nodded anxiously. "It is not just that. He moves slow, deliberate, like he is thinking ahead of his body, like his reactions are planned." The lieutenant rubbed his temple. "He claims he went to a river. There is no river anywhere near here, not within half a day's march." The hum beneath us pulsed again, a faint tremor in the soil. We all paused, and in the corner of my vision, I saw Vin's head tilt toward us slightly, as if he sensed our worry through the earth itself. Kessler lowered his voice further. "Until we know what we are dealing with, no one approaches him alone. No one turns their back to him. We carry on as if this is a normal patrol, but we sleep in shifts." "What about orders?" Alvarez asked. "Command needs to know we lost him and got something else back." But Kessler shook his head sharply. "And tell them what? That a glowing cloud borrowed our interpreter and returned a replacement? They would ground us, interrogate us, or accuse us of losing our minds." He looked over our shoulders toward Vin. "Until we understand this, we say nothing." We broke the meeting and drifted back to camp, though none of us wanted to walk near him. But Vin was finally looking away from us, staring at the darkness between the trees with open anticipation, like someone waiting for a guest to arrive. The hum from the earth grew slightly louder, almost a gentle vibration now, and I felt it in my boots, crawling up my legs and into my spine. Then Vin spoke, not loudly, not suddenly, but with quiet certainty. "They will arrive soon." His voice carried across the clearing with unnatural clarity. Roman stiffened. "Who?" he snapped. Vin did not turn his head. "The ones who taught." Miller cursed and backed away, muttering, "Nope, no damn way." Lieutenant Kessler stepped forward, though every muscle in his body looked ready to break. "Who taught you, Vin?" he demanded. Only then did Vin turn his head toward us, and the motion was smooth enough to be inhuman, like a hinge turning on oiled metal. His pupils were larger now, swallowing more of the iris, reflecting the dim firelight. "The forest," he said softly. "The air, the light, the ones who walk before you learn to walk upright." A chill ran through all of us. Alvarez whispered, "What does that even mean?" Vin blinked then, not naturally, not reflexively, but intentionally, a slow closing and opening of his eyes, as if mimicking the gesture rather than performing it instinctively. "Language is merely the first step," he continued. "Understanding follows. Integration will come later." Integration, a word that tasted mechanical, invasive. Roman lifted his rifle without meaning to. "Integration for what?" he demanded. The hum vibrated again, deeper this time. Then looked toward the trees, not answering. And then, from somewhere deep in the jungle, a faint green flicker appeared, small at first, barely a spark. Then it pulsed once, twice, 3 times. And each pulse sent the hum deeper through the ground. My heart thudded in my chest, not from fear alone but from some strange instinct whispering that whatever was approaching was not merely returning, it was advancing. Vin's lips curved into a calm, approving smile. "They mark the boundary," he murmured. "They prepare the way." Miller backed up until he hit a tree. "Lieutenant," he whispered, "we need to pull out, now." But Kessler did not get the chance to answer, because the glow pulsed again, stronger, bright enough to momentarily light the trunks around it. And in that brief wash of green, we saw something tall shift between the trees, taller than any man, taller than any creature we knew, its limbs long and bending at angles that defied logic. It disappeared instantly as the glow dimmed. But all of us saw it, all of us felt its attention. The hum in the ground rose in intensity until it buzzed in our teeth, and Vin whispered, with something like reverence, "It begins." That was the moment we realized we had not been dealing with a single glow. The first glow had simply been a scout, a signal, a lure. Now, something else was coming through the trees, something larger, something far older, something that had not come alone, and we were standing right in its path. The moment that towering silhouette slipped between the trees and vanished again, something inside every man in our squad snapped tight, like a wire stretched past its breaking point. And though none of us fired a shot or shouted an order, the instinct was unanimous and immediate. Form a perimeter, face outward, keep the fire behind us and the darkness in front of us. The air itself felt alive, trembling with the deep vibration pulsing through the soil. Even the leaves seemed to quiver, as if the jungle were holding its breath for whatever was coming next. Lieutenant Kessler raised his hand, signaling us to stay low, but his fingers shook, betraying the calm he tried to project. The glow pulsed again somewhere in the distance, an emerald heartbeat echoing through the night. With each flash, the underbrush lit up in skeletal shadows, sharp, bending shapes that moved in ways no animal could. Vin stood in the middle of camp, perfectly still, perfectly straight, perfectly wrong, his eyes reflecting the faint flickers like polished black marbles. Every time the glow brightened, his pupils expanded, swallowing nearly all color from his eyes until he looked like something carved from darkness. The hum under our boots shifted then, no longer steady, but rising and falling in a pattern too rhythmic, too intentional, almost like communication. And Vin understood it. He tilted his head slightly with each vibration, his breathing matching the pulses, syncing with them, becoming part of whatever communication was moving through the oath. "They speak," he whispered, his voice soft enough to be almost lost in the night, yet unnaturally clear. "They ask if you are ready." Roman muttered a curse and steadied his rifle against his shoulder. "Ready for what?" he demanded. Din didn't look at him. "Understanding," he murmured. "Union. Transition. Your kind calls it many things." His words felt like slipping off the edge of a cliff. Too smooth, too calm, too certain. Miller stepped forward, pointing his barrel toward the trees. "Lieutenant, we cannot stay here. Whatever that thing is out there, whatever those lights are, they're closing in. We need to move." "No." Kessler opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the glow flared brighter than anything we had seen before. So bright the jungle lit up like a burst of green lightning, revealing everything in a brief, stomach-twisting flash. The tangled vines, the dripping leaves, the strange bending shadows, and worst of all, a second shape deeper in the foliage, tall, elongated, and impossibly thin, its limbs jointed in too many places. When the light faded, leaving us blind for a moment, Roman whispered, "Hell no, no damn way, that's not human." And he was right. Whatever moved between those trees was older than language, older than war, older than humanity's presence on this continent. The glow began drifting toward us then, not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate, like something inspecting a new specimen. It pulsed in slow waves, each one stronger than the last, each one making the hum beneath our feet vibrate higher through our legs, into our knees, our chests, our teeth. Alvarez clutched the side of his head. "It's in my skull," he hissed. Like a ringing, like a whisper, the glow paused in the trees, hovering just beyond the edge of the clearing, and for the first time, the humming stopped completely. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It was the kind of silence that felt intentional, listening, studying. The only sound was the fire crackling behind us, and even that felt faint, as if dampened by some invisible force. Then Vin spoke again, but this time he did not whisper. His voice rose with a resonance that was not his own, layered, echoing, as if something else were speaking through him. "Do not fear the light. Fear the places it chooses not to reveal." Every hair on my arms stood on end. Miller swore under his breath, "Lieutenant, give the order, please." And Kessler did. "Fall back to the secondary line. Move." But the moment he barked the order, something shifted. The darkness behind the glow thickened, condensing into a tight cluster of shapes, humanoid shapes, but twisted, elongated, bending unnaturally. As they stepped closer, the glow dimmed as if yielding space, as if welcoming them forward. Our trip flares should have illuminated the scene with violent white sparks, but none of them triggered. They hung lifeless on their wires, useless, as if something had drained the function from them. That was when I realized something horrifying. The glow was not the threat, it was the beacon. The real threat was what moved in the shadow behind it. Something tall stepped closer, just close enough that the faint green light outlined its frame. revealing a long, narrow torso, arms that split near the elbows, fingers that extended like thin, vine-like tendrils. I could not see a face, only a dark ellipse where a head should have been, with two faint circles glowing inside like dim coals. It did not step like a man. It flowed, each movement smooth enough to be liquid. Roman fired first. One shot burst into the darkness. The muzzle flash lit the creature fully for a fraction of a second, enough to burn its image into my mind forever. It did not flinch, did not stagger, did not react at all. The bullets disappeared into its form as though sinking into thick fog. Alvarez opened fire next. Miller followed. Soon the night filled with the roar of rifles, muzzle flashes ripping across the darkness. But the thing kept coming, gliding forward, unaffected by the barrage. Then the glow surged brighter, and all at once, every rifle jammed. Not overheated, not out of ammo, jammed. Triggers locked, bolts stuck, safeties frozen. We kept pulling, kept fighting, but the weapons were dead in our hands. Behind us, Vin finally moved. He stepped forward, slow and serene, raising his hand toward the looming creature. "They do not harm without purpose," he said, his voice soft but firm, as if comforting a frightened child. "They observe, they adapt, and now, they will begin." His last words drifted into the night like a closing prayer, because the creature stepped fully into the clearing then, not attacking, not pouncing, not rushing us. It simply arrived. And as it stood there towering over us, the glow shrinking back behind it like a loyal servant, I understood the most terrifying truth of that night. We were not witnessing the arrival of an enemy. We were witnessing the arrival of something that believed we belonged to it, something that had walked this earth long before humans, something that had come back to reclaim its place. And whatever had taken Ha Vin had returned him as the first sign of what waited deeper in the jungle. The creature's arrival did not feel like the beginning of a fight or even a confrontation. It felt like an announcement, a declaration that the ground beneath our boots no longer belonged to us. And the instant it stepped fully into the clearing, the temperature around us dropped so sharply, the sweat on our skin turned cold. Every instinct I had built through years of war screamed to move, to fire, to run, but my body felt heavy, dragged down by a pressure in the air that wrapped around my chest like invisible vines. The towering shape loomed over us with limbs that bent in smooth angles no anatomy book could explain, its silhouette shifting subtly with every pulse of the green glow behind it, as if its form was being rewritten moment by moment. Roman, usually the loudest and most defiant among us, fell completely silent, his hands trembling around the useless rifle in his grip. Alvarez whispered some prayer under his breath, though his voice trembled so hard the words tangled together. Even Miller, who treated fear like an enemy to challenge, could not hide the way his breath hitched every time the creature's outline warped. Lieutenant Kessler tried to speak, tried to bark orders, assert control, anything to anchor us, but even he choked on the first syllable, his jaw clenched so tightly the muscles strained down his neck. The creature took a single step forward, and the ground responded with a ripple, a soft tremor spreading outward in concentric waves that passed beneath our boots and faded into the jungle. It was not weight causing the tremor, it was intention. The hum we had been hearing for hours deepened, growing so low it felt more like a vibration inside our bones than a sound. Then the glow pulsed again, and that was when I realized the glow was not simply light, it was a signal, a language, a conduit. Each pulse seemed to feed the creature, energizing it, sharpening its outline, strengthening its presence. Vin stood closest to the thing, his posture serene, almost reverent, and the way he tilted his head toward it made my stomach twist. This was not fear, this was allegiance. His voice drifted across the clearing, calm and toneless. "This is the beginning of convergence." The word convergence slid into my head like a cold blade. Miller spat. "The hell does that mean?" But his voice cracked at the end, betraying the terror sitting low in his chest. Vin answered without turning. "You will understand when the threshold opens." The creature's head, if it could be called a head, shifted toward Miller as though acknowledging his outburst, and its body elongated slightly, stretching upward in a fluid, unnatural motion. A faint sound escaped it then, a soft exhale that felt like a breath made from wind scraping through a cavern. It was not loud, not threatening, yet it froze all of us more effectively than a weapon pointed at our skulls. Lieutenant Kessler finally found enough strength to move, taking a step backward, motioning for us to fall into a staggered retreat. But the moment he did, every tree at the edge of the clearing shuddered, as if gripped by the same invisible force. Branches bent inward, vines curled like tightening fists. Leaves folded in complete synchronity, sealing the clearing into a circular chamber of vegetation. We were trapped. Roman fired again, not because he thought it would work, but because fear demanded he try something. The rifle clicked once, jammed again, dead in his hands. "It is no use," Vin whispered. "Tools of fragmentation cannot harm what precedes them." His words made no sense, yet carried a logic so dark it felt inevitable. The creature stepped closer, bending slightly as if inspecting each of us. Its limbs hung like strands of liquid shadow, swaying with the faint pulsing of the glow. The low hum intensified until the air vibrated, and for a terrifying instant, I felt something in my mind, an intrusion, a gentle pressure pushing against the edges of thought, probing like fingers pressing against glass. The creature leaned near Lieutenant Kessler, and Kessler's breath stuttered, his eyes widening with helpless terror. "Get away from him," Roman shouted, but his voice sounded small, swallowed by the humming air. The creature did not touch Kessler. It simply hovered near him for a moment, its faceless head tilting, studying. Then, just as suddenly, it withdrew, its body retracting smoothly, like a shadow reclaiming itself. The hum faded, the glow dimmed, and Vin turned to us with an expression that belonged to neither man nor monster. "They have measured you," he said softly. "Now they will decide." The words hit us harder than any bullet could have. Measured us. For what? For replacement? For assimilation? For consumption? No one knew. But the moment he spoke, the glow began drifting backward into the trees, fading, retreating into the jungle with the same slow, deliberate intention that had first brought it to our camp. The towering creature followed, its form stretching and dissolving into the darkness, until only a faint outline remained. The last thing we saw was its head turning one final time, watching us with those dim glowing circles that felt less like eyes and more like windows into something ancient and unfathomable. Then it vanished completely. The trees uncurled, the vines loosened. The clearing returned to normal. The hum faded until silence reclaimed the jungle. For a long moment, no one breathed, no one moved, no one spoke. Then Vin turned toward the path the creature had taken and whispered, "This was only the threshold." And for the first time, I wished the creature had taken me, because whatever waited beyond that threshold was far worse than anything that had stepped into our clearing. We did not run at first, not because we were brave, but because our legs would not obey us. The clearing still held the memory of that impossible presence, a faint impression in the air, like pressure left behind after a detonated charge. And every nerve in my body told me that if I moved too quickly, whatever watched us from the dark might return. The jungle had fallen into a silence so complete it felt sculpted, as if the entire valley had paused its breathing to listen. None of us looked at Vin. We didn't need to, because we could feel him standing there behind us, calm and straight-backed, as if nothing unnatural had happened, and as if he expected the next part to unfold exactly as it would. When Lieutenant Kessler finally forced himself to speak, his voice cracked, thin with a tremor I had never heard from him. "We fall back," he whispered. "Slow, no sudden movements." But the idea of retreating seemed like an insult to the laws of the place we were now trapped in. Still, we moved. One step back, then another. Each step felt like cracking a seal we weren't meant to break, and with each footfall, the soil beneath us vibrated faintly, a residual hum that felt like the aftershock of a tremor still deciding whether to become something larger. Alvarez kept darting his eyes at the tree line, as though expecting the towering creature to rematerialize. Roman muttered a constant stream of "hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no" under his breath as he backed away, hands shaking around his useless rifle. Miller stayed close to me, jaw locked, sweat dripping off his brow in steady rivulets. When we were about 10 paces from the clearing, something shifted ahead, a subtle flicker of movement. So small at first I thought it was a trick of nerves. But then it happened again and again, shapes in the distance, not glowing, not towering, but moving. Too fluid, too synchronized, like shadows that had learned how to walk. Lieutenant Kessler froze mid-step. The shapes were approaching, but not in a rush. They glided in parallel lines between the trees, weaving around trunks without disturbing a single branch. There was no glow now, no guiding light, just darkness folding over itself, carrying something inside it. Kessler raised his hand, though it shook so badly it barely resembled a command. "Left route," he whispered. "Now, move." We pivoted slowly toward the western ridge, hoping the higher ground might offer even the smallest advantage. But the moment we shifted direction, the shadows adjusted their path, angling slightly as if following our bodies rather than our movement. They did not speed up, they did not slow down, they simply matched us. "They're hurting us," Miller whispered. The words hit with a cold certainty. The creatures, whatever they were, weren't chasing, they were directing, guiding, steering us towards something deeper in the valley, something they wanted us to see. A sickening realization crawled up my spine. This entire night had been staged, orchestrated, the glow arriving, Vin disappearing, the towering creature entering the clearing, and now the silent escort through the jungle. We were not escaping, we were being moved. We continued backing away, rifles ready but dead, breaths shallow. Branches snapped underfoot as we climbed toward the ridge, and each snap felt like a shout in the dead silence of the night. Halfway up the incline, Roman whispered, "They're gaining." And he was right. The shadows were closing the distance, not by speeding up, but by simply allowing the darkness around them to stretch forward, swallowing ground like a tide. Suddenly a faint glimmer appeared at the top of the ridge, soft, white, flickering like a lantern caught behind a thick veil. Hope surged for the first time since the nightmare began. "Flare?" Alvarez breathed. "Maybe a patrol?" But even as he said it, a deeper instinct in me recoiled. That light didn't feel human. It didn't feel like fire. It didn't even flicker correctly. Too steady at the center, too irregular at the edges. And then Vin's voice drifted up behind us, flowing through the trees in a calm tone that chilled the blood in my veins. "You misunderstand. That is not rescue." His footsteps approached slowly, unnervingly quiet on the forest floor. "It is invitation." Roman spun around with a snarl, raising his useless rifle. "Stay back," he shouted. "I swear to God, stay back." But Vin did not stop. "There is no need for threats," he said. "You have already been chosen to witness the alignment." The word alignment echoed in my skull like a whispered command. "What happens if we refuse?" Miller growled. Vin smiled softly in the dark. "Refusal is a human idea." The shadows behind him thickened, as if reacting to his words. "This is something older, something inevitable." Then the white glimmer at the top of the ridge pulsed once, softly. And every shadow in the valley paused, at the exact same instant, synchronized in perfect stillness. No creature moves like that. Nothing living, nothing natural. The air pressure shifted, pushing against us from behind, nudging us forward. And I realized, with a clarity that sank into my gut like a stone, we were no longer being herded. We were being ushered. Kessler tried to resist, planting his boots firmly in the soil, but the pressure intensified, invisible and undeniable, pushing at his back like a rising tide. Miller grabbed his arm, trying to anchor him, but both men staggered forward, their muscles straining against something they could not see. The white glimmer pulsed again, slightly brighter this time. And when its glow touched the leaves around it, the foliage curled away as though recoiling from heat, but the light wasn't hot. It was cold, cold enough to make my breath frost in the air. "Do not be afraid," Vin said gently, almost kindly. "You are witnessing the return. The return of what? Of who? Of how many?" No one asked. No one could, because as the cold light flared a third time, washing the ridge in ghostly white, we finally saw what waited beyond it. And the sight froze every scream in our throats. What waited beyond that ridge was not a creature, not a machine, not a structure. It was a rupture. A wound in the world shaped like a doorway carved from light and shadow, bending inward and outward at the same time, as if the jungle itself had been peeled open to reveal something behind reality and not meant for human eyes. The white glow we had mistaken for a flare was the core of it, a cold orb suspended in midair, shining through layers of veils that rippled like liquid glass. Every ripple distorted the trees behind it, warping trunks into spirals, stretching branches into impossible angles, bending the moonlight into threads that flickered like broken reflections. Roman let out a strangled sound, something between fear and disbelief, and stumbled backward as if the sight physically pushed him, while Alvarez clutched his head, whispering prayers through clenched teeth. Miller froze beside me, jaw slack, eyes wide, as though witnessing the moment a nightmare learned how to breathe. Lieutenant Kessler tried to issue a command, but only a dry, choking noise came out, because how do you shout orders at something that defies the idea of solid ground? The shadows behind us stopped advancing, forming a half-circle barrier that cut off retreat, hemming us in like animals corralled for slaughter or something worse. And then Vin stepped forward, walking right past us, unfazed by the pressure, unfazed by the cold, unfazed by the doorway pulling the air inward. His voice flowed softly, as if weaving into the hum in the ground. "This is their threshold," he murmured, "the boundary between what you know and what you deny." The glowing wound pulsed once, and with that pulse, a wave of cold swept across the valley so sharp it made my bones ache. I could see my breath clouding the air, curling in front of my face like smoke in reverse. Roman grabbed Vin's shoulder in desperation, but the moment he touched him, he screamed and ripped his hand away as if burned. His palm blistered instantly, as though he'd touched metal left in a winter storm. "Do not touch what has been transformed," Vin said without turning. "You are not prepared." The pulsing doorway brightened, and shapes began shifting behind the veil, distorted silhouettes moving with slow, deliberate purpose. Not tall and towering like the creature in the clearing, these were different, shorter, broader, multiplying. The silhouettes folded in and out of each other, merging and separating, like smoke learning how to take form. Then a faint sound rose from the doorway, a layered whisper, like thousands of voices speaking through water, not words but a pattern, a rhythm, a beckoning. And as the whisper deepened, the air vibrated again, forcing us to our knees. My vision blurred, my ears rang, my stomach twisted, as if I were falling without moving. And for one terrible moment, I felt something trying to slip inside my thoughts, probing the edges of memory, searching for a place to anchor itself. Kessler grunted, clutching at his head. Miller pressed his palms against his ears, shouting that he could hear them inside. Alvarez fell to the ground shaking, eyes rolling back. Roman crawled backward until he hit a tree, gasping, "No more, no more, no," before the sound cut off abruptly as he convulsed. I felt my own grip on consciousness slipping as the whispering grew stronger, pressing inward from every direction. Then, suddenly, it stopped, cut clean. Silence dropped over the ridge like a curtain, and the doorway dimmed. The silhouettes dissolved. The hum beneath the ground ceased. The pressure vanished. The cold retreated. We gasped, as though breaching the surface of deep water. Alvarez vomited into the leaves. Miller collapsed onto all fours. Roman slumped against the tree, trembling uncontrollably. Only Vin remained standing, untouched, serene, watching the fading light of the doorway with something like pride. "They have seen you," he said quietly, "and they have chosen." The word chosen punched through the silence like a gunshot. I crawled to Kessler, gripping his vest, forcing him to look at me. "Chosen for what?" I rasped, but Vin answered before he could, "To remember." He finally turned to us, and for the first time I saw his face clearly under the moonlight. His eyes no longer held pupils at all. They were entirely black, reflecting only the faint dying shimmer of the doorway behind him. "You will leave this valley," he said. "You will carry what you have witnessed into the world beyond. And in time, the path will open again." A sickening dread filled my chest. "What about you?" Miller croaked. Vin smiled. "I am already home." The shadows behind him folded inward, wrapping him like a shroud, and without another sound, He stepped backward into the dying light and vanished. No flash, no glow, no scream. Gone. The jungle snapped back into motion around us. Crickets resumed chirping, wind stirred the leaves, the moon shone through as if nothing had happened. And when dawn finally came, we stumbled out of that valley half dead, half mad, and wholly changed. Command asked what happened. We lied. We said enemy ambush, lost interpreter, lost time, lost direction. They accepted it. They wanted to. But some nights, years later, decades later, I still wake to the faint green glow drifting across my walls, pulsing like a heartbeat, a reminder, a warning, a promise. The path never closed, it only sleeps. And someday, it will open again. When we finally made it back to base, the brass buried our report, stamped the whole thing as confusion, exhaustion, fog of war, anything except the truth. But every man who walked out of that valley knows what we saw wasn't the enemy, wasn't nature, and sure as hell wasn't meant for human eyes. Something ancient moved through that jungle, and it left a mark on all of us that never healed. If you've got your own story from the shadows, something you saw, something you heard, something that followed you home, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Before you go, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next declassified nightmare. This is Captain Rebel, signing off. Stay sharp out there.